Isaac Davis, I am honored and I am thrilled to have you on the show today, man. Thank you so much for joining us.
Of course, brother, of course, anytime.
Awesome. So I'm very interested in this one because you have a very big tech background, and I know that's what a lot of your business focuses in on. But I really like this one because you have an athletic background as well, which we're going to talk about. That I feel like most athletes don't make that transition over into like the entrepreneurial business space as much. And as someone who was an athlete, this conversation I'm looking highly like I'm very forward to it.
Yeah,
So.
yeah,
With
of
that
course.
being said, man, I want to say thank you so much again for being on the show, and I'm looking forward to kind of like seeing how this evolves. Okay,
I'm excited. Let's get into it.
perfect. Now, your company, MBRLY, right? First of all, it reminds me of my aunt because her name is somewhat similar. I don't
Oh,
know.
really?
Yeah. So I was just like, okay, that's what I thought the name of the company. I was like, I think I know the name of this, but just in case. But Kimberly focuses on a lot, right? So I have a little bit of a DevOps background, but your business focuses on the RevOps background or like space, which, deals with the revenue and the operation side, which I feel like a lot of people don't look into. By the way, I feel like there's a lot of noise on.
You hear it, the static, right?
Yeah,
I don't know where that started coming from. It started getting louder.
yeah. I feel like it's like an air vent or something.
There's nothing on. It just like dimmed off. I hear it though.
Yeah, saying I thought I was bugging for a second.
I don't know where it's coming from. It sounds like white noise, right?
Yeah.
Wait, it went away.
Yeah.
Okay, it's gone now.
Yeah, that's weird. Okay.
Oh, no.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna do it from the top
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I heard it all.
just in case. But cool. Isaac Davis, thank you so much for joining the show. I look forward to speaking to you. This is one of the ones I'm actually truly like grateful to be able to host this one because as an African American who has an athletic background in the entrepreneurial world, I love being able to share stories like this as well too. So I just want to say thank you so much, man, for hopping on the show.
Anytime, Jay. Anytime.
Awesome. So, with that being said, I feel like a lot of people who come from an athletic background typically don't make the transition over into like the entrepreneurial space. And I could be wrong, yet let the tech entrepreneurial space.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, from your experience, do you feel like that's the same thing? Like some of your buddies back in college or people you just know are like in the same similar boat, or do you see there's more athletes who are kind of getting into this space because there's just more technological like advancements happen.
I think it's a little bit of both. Currently, I only have one friend who like is from college and is actually like actively pursuing his own business. Other than that, yeah, it's like a blue ocean of nobody else really was in the sports world. No, but I am seeing it become more attractive to them because it's like you can have a longer career in entrepreneurship than you can in sports. So a lot of them are seeing that as maybe something they should, start build alongside their athletic career.
Gotcha. And it's funny because like my brother, he's younger. He's getting hit up from a lot of different colleges. He plays football, and that's something I tell him as well. I think there's a great podcast out where it's like more than an athlete, and I try to remind him that a lot. Where it's like, hey, you're great at what you do. It's also, and I'm not saying to take your focus off of it, not to be obsessed, but understand that there will be a life after the career. What can you do now to make yourself not just a more valuable player, but a more valuable individual and a more valuable man? And having him to start to look into some of those, the tech side, AI, and just to be more of like aware of what's going on. So I love having this conversation, but I am interested. You have the track background, you have the athletic background. Why make the shift or what happened from athlete to entrepreneur? Or were you always like the entrepreneurial?
Actually interesting. I do have I've seen an entrepreneur. My mother was a photographer for 11 or 10 years. So I saw what it was like for like to I guess be a child of an entrepreneur, but it was never like a desire of mine. There was never a burning like, oh, I'm gonna have my own business. It kind of happened out of like situational, like me wanting to change my current situations. Going into college, I was like, yeah, I wanted to be a math teacher, which is like looking back at it now, it's crazy that that's like for 3.5 years, that's what I thought I was going to be doing. And then like I was realized that the life that I kind of wanted to live just wouldn't be possible with me as a math teacher. Like it just literally it just wouldn't work. And I kind of wanted to have a bigger impact. So then I was like, okay. So I started just looking at a bunch of stuff. Then I thought I was going to be an actuary, which is like an insurance risk analyst kind of thing. I even started like studying for the test to be one of those. And I was like, okay, I don't want to do this either. And then I was like, okay, maybe I'll be a product manager. So I just started like jumping through a bunch of different things. And then the product manager aligned the most with kind of like what I'm doing now. But I was still a track athlete in school, and I didn't want to like wait until the end of the year to just be like, okay, I hope I find a product manager job, because I was studying mathematics. So I just kind of started playing around with like making different little softwares, or just literally just watching stuff in the entrepreneur space. And then all the little rejections and everything I was trying took me to where I am today. So it was literally a matter of 8 months. It went from thinking I was going to be a math teacher to an insurance risk analyst to a product manager to starting my own thing. It was just like, I didn't stop. I just kept going. It was weird.
It went 0 to 100 real quick, or at least from
Really?
I feel that, man. My mom, she has an entrepreneurial spirit as well. She has like her own practice with while also working with a company as well. And oftentimes I look at her as like the inspiration, but I can resonate to that because I feel like most entrepreneurs can, where you don't know where you want to necessarily go, but you don't want to be here.
Yep.
So it's like,
Yep.
okay, time to play, time to adapt, time to learn new skill sets, try it out, see if it works. Funny enough, I wasn't gonna be a PM, but more of a project manager, not a product manager. So I went down that road as well too, which I still use like the skill sets
Yeah.
to this day. Like it's just overall, it's great to just know, especially if you're going to be an entrepreneur, understanding how to like manage a lot of different things. But I was literally in that same boat. So help me understand a little bit of how MBRLY came about and what does is MBRLY?
Yeah, so at first it started out as like just an overall like growth partnership kind of agency. And then I realized, being inexperienced, which is the true honest answer, this is a lot of work, and I wanted to choose a business model that played more to my strengths already, so I could kind of have expertise at the jump and then just kind of go apply it to the new things that I was learning when we were a growth partner agency. So what we did is we just took the data analytics side, and then I realized, oh shoot, my math background actually is really valuable here. So let's just like use that a lot. And I was learning all of the business side, the sales, marketing, customer success side, when we were a growth agency for about like 3 to 4 months. So then I just mixed the two, and I was like, oh, this is called revenue operations, and then that's literally what just happened from there. So um, it took one good client that kept asking some very challenging questions on the data side. And when, we had finished the requirements that they were asking, I was like, wait, this should just be my offer. This is literally what we should be for companies. And the rest is history after that, really.
Dude, I love that so much. And it's interesting of how like some people they say like you need to have a solution automatically when you're going to like start a business or start a practice, but sometimes it just goes to like solving one solution or solving one problem that then solves a different problem. And then as you're realizing these problems, you're like, oh wait, there we go. Like it starts to unravel itself and it starts to unpackage. But it does come to being able to identify those moments. Because if you don't, you might allow that to slip past. I've been in those situations before. Why we didn't just focus on this particular thing as like our major core offer and solution? But it is kind of crazy how some of those things in school come back full circle,
We
right?
did.
They'd be like, you're going to learn stuff in school that doesn't matter. And it's like, it's not to say it won't, because
Yeah.
it will at some point, maybe in a different perspective, but don't just discount what you're going to learn
Yeah.
in school,
Yeah.
right?
Especially we took all the time and effort to do it too.
Exactly. So it was like, might as well figure out a way to somewhat use it or not. But I do like that, especially as someone who comes from a sales background and like now focus a lot more on marketing, which now I'm understanding marketing and sales is relatively the same thing.
Be aligned.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, got it. But what I do love as well is like the operation side because I come from a design background. So this
Yeah.
ops concept is very attractive to me and I want to kind of understand it more. Do you feel like a lot of people face those challenges on for RevOps in their business? Is it common for like just startups or is it just in general across business?
No, yeah. Across most businesses, which is why it's kind of a newer term, there is an issue, because a lot of times, especially like what you'll see in bigger teams, is the marketing team will blame the sales team will blame the marketing team, when technically they should be aligned in one like accord. When that is happening, that there's a disconnect on the revenue operations side, because even then, sometimes the sales team will give this customer success clients that they're like, what are we supposed to do with this person? Like they don't fit our situation, et cetera, et cetera. So the whole business should be aligned on one customer journey, from marketing, hand off to sales, hand off to customer success. And when you're not aligned, That's when those disconnects happens. That's when the pointing the fingers happens. And yeah, so I think it's an issue in the majority of businesses today.
Yeah, no, you're spot on, and I kind of tee that up because I was working with a company, and I was so focused on the sales side, get this like setter team management and so forth, and then I came over to the fulfillment side, and then I got a better scope of like everything. I was like, wait a minute, this is you're
Yeah.
you're both misled. Like not in a negative way, but it's more of just like, wait, whoa, what's going on? This makes sense to why the sales team feel this way and why you guys feel the
Yep.
same. I was like, okay, we need to restructure this, either
Yep.
the offer or the overall streamlining of the process, who's going to be where. And once we did that, it became a more like steamed oil machine. But it was interesting because when I was on the sales side focus, I was just like, what is going on the other side? Like,
You have
what's
no idea.
like what's up with these leads that are certain customers like unhappy, and then vice versa. When I got on the fulfillment, I'm like, why are the salespeople selling something we can't do? I was like, where is this misalignment? And sometimes it's honestly just as simple as sometimes like streamlining the communication, having a dashboard that people really understand that like what is it that we all should be on the accord, or just coming together more frequently so that if there are questions or thoughts, it can be heard. For you, because I know you work a lot on the data, do you feel like it's more just, hey, here's the data so you guys can both understand and then create a solution? Or is it more of that qualitative like side where you have to have more interactions, personable interactions on like the teams, bringing them together and kind of
Yeah.
resolving those issues?
So what we do is we took like kind of like a reverse engineering approach. So we start with the data, and then that allows us to go and ask the qualitative questions so we can find the root causes. So a really good example, right, is maybe we put the entire customer journey, right, from initial attention all the way to like recurring clients. And maybe we see that there's like a really big inefficiency from leads to opportunities or book calls. Then we can go and ask the question, okay, what is going on between this transition? Is this something on the sales side? Is it something on the marketing side, right? Is there pre-qualifications for someone to get on a call? Is it too much? Is it too less? Are we attracting the wrong leads with the wrong messaging from the marketing side? But we do that starting with the data, so we're not wasting time just like align. We just literally put it kind of on paper, and we're like, okay, now we know what needs to go ahead and be aligned. So that's why we start with the data, and then it enables us to make really, really, really good decisions as far as, qualitatively aligning the teams.
Yeah, and I feel like there's been a big shift. And I'm granted you're gonna always need both when you're consulting like with people, but I think there has been a big shift to where you have to start more with the data first. And I don't know if that's just because how we are in today's society, like information overload. Like,
Yeah.
let me see the numbers, then we can pull back the onions. Versus the other way, when you would consult, it would be more of these theoretical approaches, things that's out there that you can probably try to implement, then see what the effects are versus like, no.
Yeah.
Let's look at the data, reverse, then
Yep.
we can fast forward now like with that information. That's what it sounds like you guys kind of have the methodology that you do as well. Awesome, man. Well, why go into like the consulting space? Right? I love it because I tell anyone if you're a subject matter expert, no matter how big or how small, try it as a coaching offer, try it as a consulting offer, or like create like a course out of it to teach other people. Why did you decide to go more in like the consulting route and like build this up?
So it's actually funny. The first thing I tried to do when I was in college, and it's funny because I started getting into the entrepreneur stuff in like the last 3 months of my last track and field season. But I was trying to build a product with a couple friends of mine, and it was cool. We got the product to like its MVP and all of that. And then I realized that I kind of foresaw it that the software thing, if I didn't have a huge background in marketing, it'd be a lot harder to get that to work. But then I also saw an influx of so many tools being created, and then AI making a bunch of tools like even easier to create. Like people can just copy your tool like in 2 minutes. And if they have a better distribution thing, then they can literally just beat you to market. And I was like, okay, well, then what I'll do is I'll just utilize the best tools to my advantage and just consult on top of those. So it was more of a like, I'd rather play an easier game and let them fight over who has the best product, and I'll just use the best product and consult with it. Right? That's literally what the choice I just decided to go.
I love that because one of my friends, two of them actually, one though he develops a software, and the other one is an actual software engineer for like DoD, so forth. So it's great here, like talking to both of them. You got the one who's like, we got to make this, and versus the other one who's like, there's already no code tools. I'm just going to be the integrator. Basically, like a solution architect, where it's like, hey, we don't need to rebuild this from scratch. This will take care of this, and maybe we combine it with this one as well. And now you have your system of what you would have paid like someone
Exactly.
thousands of dollars to create on your own. And I see more of that happening, but it is because of the rate of like how quickly these tools are being created, right?
Yep.
Do you feel that, because of the rate of how many tools are being created, that it's going to be oversaturated to where you don't necessarily know which tool to use, or you're kind of overcompensating on the tools, like then to the point where it's like, hey, actually, we still need to go back to making our own in-house tools? Like,
I think it's gonna be a little bit of both. I think the vertical tools thing, which is like kind of already happening, will really win. So like people having like let's say a CRM just for lawyers, like I think those will win simply because they can more deeply meet the needs of their client base. Which it's weird because it kind of turns it into like a software consultancy hybrid. It's like really like a mixture of both. But then like in-house, bro, it'll be so easy now. Like we even have our own, like for instance, for like UTM tracking, we have our own UTM tracking software. My co-founder made it in like 2 days with the no-code tools. You know what I mean? Like it's not like hard now to do exactly what you just said. Somebody can make a custom software for one specific use case instead of having to go pay, a whole dev team to do it. So I think it'll be a little bit of both. I think the vertical based SaaS will like succeed. And then I think you will see those use cases where people in-house just have like their own tools. I know I have a friend who uses his own CRM. Like he made just his own just to fit how his business works. So yeah.
yeah. I think that's so true, and it reminds me like on the marketing side where it's like, hey, we can use these platforms to get like attention, but eventually we want to drive that attention to our own like that base we can actually own, right? And it's the same concept where it's like, hey, we don't need to develop these tools to get up and running, get the business going, but as we start to do this, we're getting cash in, we're getting this streamlined. On the back end side, let's make sure that if for some reason these crash,
We
they
have
start
our
out of business, we have our own that we can, keep the business on, which is great because now I feel like nowadays it's just so much easier, right?
it is.
At least to get started. Longevity wise, maybe it might be a different conversation, but then that's when you start to see like that backtracking happens. You guys been doing this. You've talked about a couple different clients. Can you share a success story of like the like implementing or how you guys went about the rev ops side so people get a better understanding of like what does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that look like potentially?
Yeah, so we have one client. He runs a soccer recruitment agency. They were doing really, really good. But for his marketing efforts, he had a lot of people hired. His team was about 30. It didn't need to be 30, but it was 30 people. Yeah, it was a really bigger team. But he had zero visibility into the ROI from all those different marketing people. It was just like genuine. He had no idea. So we came in, he had like literally zero data infrastructure. There was like nothing there. So we built it completely from scratch. And immediately, like the immediate ROI was a couple of things. One, there was one group, like one marketing channel that they were posting on Instagram and TikTok for him. And there was kind of like a pot of people and he thought that they were making money. So he was paying them on retainer. Then he realized that there was zero traffic coming, literally like essentially zero traffic coming from them. So immediately cut them off. That's the immediate money that he just saved, right? Month over month. He just saved it from cutting it off. It also saved him from who knows how much longer he would have been paying them. So there's one. Two, he was putting a lot more effort into one data source of TikTok. He thought that all of his leads were coming from TikTok. We built an attribution system for him to see where all his book calls were coming from, and it was actually triple the amount on Instagram than TikTok. Now, that didn't make him stop posting on TikTok, but he saw TikTok with a different kind of like goal now. Because what you can see is like he's posting on TikTok to get the awareness. People follow him on Instagram, and then on Instagram after they see his content over time, then they're ready to make that decision. Where he thought people were just coming directly from TikTok. Yeah, it was like that was not the case at all. So it started making him take his Instagram more serious, and then it actually exponentially, like he was booking more calls on Instagram through taking it more serious from TikTok. So those are like two immediate ROI cases, right? Where it's like, okay, you're saving money from knocking off the people who aren't doing anything on marketing. And then now you have more of a goal with your content because you're seeing the outputs of it, which is really, really couldn't really see it. You can see the views, but those are just vanity metrics. But seeing like actual like pipeline traffic, how many people are showing up to those calls, how much people are closing from those channels, it made him take more ownership of his Instagram, and he's doing a lot better now. So yeah.
Dude, that's great. And it's always an interesting conversation talking to people about content because they're like the ROI aspect. It's like there is ways to track it, but there are other things where it's like it's not immediate, right?
Exactly.
ROI, it's that brand awareness, so forth, and you never know where they end up going to next. So it is interesting when people start to look at that specifically, but it is important. And the biggest thing what I hear out of that is just giving that visibility to those leaders
It is.
of understanding from a high level just where is everything, but then to be able to make better decisions because they can now see the insight versus it all being stashed away
Yeah.
for the individual people. Oh man. So tech is evolving at a very, very fast pace, right? And there's a silent shift going on, even though this whole talk about AI is happening. People don't realize how like infancy stage AI really is, right? When you hear the word AI and you're hearing all these people talk about it, do you feel well, I mean, obviously you're using it, but do you feel that it's going to be like a big hindrance or like a big add-on to like the economy right now? Or not economy, but just like business in general?
Yeah, I think that there's two things. I think the people who use it correctly will see like exponential leaps and gains ahead of their competitors. Then the people who are like skeptical of it, I think they're just going to get left behind. Eventually, those legacy systems are just going to lose. But then there's also like a middle ground that I don't really see too many people talking about, which is the rates of the speed and the advances in this. I think right now, to me, it seems even faster than the adoption by like miles. So like, there's still people who don't even know what ChatGPT is. There's still people, so like, if you just go that's one crazy thing. Then you
Yeah.
go another step. I remember I have a crazy story. My mom, she works for a nonprofit company. They have like, I don't know how big their team is, but I just showed her what Fathom was, the AI note taker, and it blew her mind because they still have somebody doing meeting notes. So I'm like, and I'm thinking that like Fathom is like this worldwide thing at this point. It's not. So, and mind you, those are very small use case tools. So if you skip to the stuff that's being at the very, very top end, there's people who have like no idea like already what the capabilities are now. And like you said, we're still in its infancy. So that like gap of adoption, I think, is only going to get bigger. And the winners are going to win big, and the losers are going to really lose.
Yeah, and that's the conversation we have to where it's like you want to spend the time to educate yourself, but because of the rate of where it's going, you feel like you can't catch up to the information because by the time you're like, I figured out this tool, the other tool is already already created. So it's like it stumps people, right? How have you been able to help people adopt? And I don't know if it's the fact of you guys helping them to adopt the specific tools, or if it's just, hey, we're going to do the solution. Don't worry about the tools. We'll take care of it. Is it you helping them adopt the tools with providing the solutions, or like you just, hey, don't even worry about it. We're just going to give you this outcome, and then you guys take care of the tools. What involvement or education side are you really helping with the like these businesses and these thought leaders when
Yeah.
providing the bread?
It's actually good that you said that, because me and my co-founder, we just made it a point maybe a couple of weeks ago to actually leave time open in our weeks for innovation and learning, because we obviously need to be ahead, right? If we're pushing like data and RevOps, we need to be like up. So we actually have time set out each week to actually literally just go and innovate, go and study. And during those times, we always find something new. It's just like it's always something new. But anytime we have a client who are like, okay, no, this could definitely benefit them, we'll literally go ahead and send them a report. And then even for ourselves, we're actually using that as top of funnel awareness. So like on my LinkedIn and on my co-founder's LinkedIn too, we'll post like underrated tools or maybe tool that we used to use. We don't see a use case for it now, but somebody who's following us may do it. And I feel like that's the easiest thing to do right now because there's literally an abundance of tools, testing them out, using them, posting maybe like it could be 3 sentences about what the tool does, and somebody may see that as like, oh my gosh, we've been looking for something just like that. And yeah, so
Yeah, there's a guy I follow, and there's a newsletter. Like that's literally what they do.
yep, yep,
Just gives out the information, gives it in a digestible way to where you can understand what it is, the use of it in a very kind of small snippet. I was like, this is great because at least it just keeps me aware. And it sounds like, in a sense, like basically doing the same thing. But there's companies that there's a role that's their main focus now. It's
yeah,
just being up to date of the tools, what's the changes. Like they're not even implement. They just need to know.
Yeah.
And of course, if something comes about and they find it, they're like, awesome. Hey, let's then hand this over to that specific team or that specific division. They'll have someone who will do it, but your focus is just market research of like the tools itself, right? Now, a lot of people talk about the fact that it's going to replace jobs, it's going to replace people, and we kind of talked about the fact that it's not going to. It is, but it's more so it's going to replace the people that don't understand how to specifically use it, right? Do you feel like there's going to? Do you feel like to a degree there's a certain amount of like automation that can happen to where it becomes overbearing? Or do you feel like, hey, if you have the ability to automate it, why not do it fast?
Yeah. I think there's twofold. I think if the process has been proven over and over and over again with like the human work, then you should go ahead and automate it. But if it's like a brand new process that you don't even really understand how it entirely works, I don't think you should go into automating it simply because when it breaks, you have no like troubleshoot experience with it because you don't even know literally what it's supposed to look like end to end. So I think there's two things. I think it should be automated after it's been repeatedly proven time over time. And then again, it's like since we're so early, it's you still always want to have a human like monitoring it or some type of like error handling system just because you don't know. Like these things can break. It's not like they're cut in stone yet. I mean, humans aren't cut in stone, but the automations aren't either yet.
Yeah, I agree. I tell people you should always still have kind of like that operator. Even if it's running, you just still want to make sure it's running. Like, because they're going to need updates. You need to just be able to have oversight. No difference to just like overseeing people. It's the same thing. You're just overseeing a tool now. Now, that might mean you have less people that's doing that, but you should definitely still have someone who is doing it, right? Now, you guys lean a lot on data, right? Data intelligence and overseeing this information. What do you think are some of the key areas for businesses, for specifically the solution you guys provide that people aren't taking a look at, like when it comes to the data side?
So for our own clients,
Yeah, your own clients or people just in the business world that are like, hey, what we found most common is like when we're working with these people, for example, the content, they're not understanding specifically where revenue is coming from because they're not tracking it, right? So, like, what are those three common things you found that people aren't keeping track of
yeah.
on the side?
So 100% would be like the output of their funnel from like a legit engineering standpoint. So what I mean by that is like if we have three SDRs, three setters, right? What is literally we know what their inputs are, right? Because those are the quotas that they have to hit or whatever it is. But what is the output of them at each stage of the funnel, right? So a lot of people don't have like the conversions of their setters like mapped out. So that's one big thing that I would say. Another one would be because there's so many different places to post content, a way to comparatively see them. Because we've seen some teams who are like, yeah, we have our like Facebook ads thing down. And they're like, okay, are you posting anywhere else? And they're like, yes, but then those things aren't tracked. So you actually don't know how those could be helping you, right? And if you're spending the time and energy to post content somewhere, you should probably, want to know what those outputs are from the energy that you're putting into it. So I would say that's another one, right? The full service like marketing attribution, like where are we getting these outputs from on the marketing side? And then the last thing I would say is we have some clients who have pretty decent data, but the thing is a static number only tells you like so much of the story. And even sometimes what we have to do is like educate our clients before they're even our client is like, yes, okay, maybe you know what your show up rate is. Do you know what your show up rate is over the last 6 months? Where are the dips, right? And then it's like, okay, what were the reasons for these dips? Those are questions that you can't see when you just see our current show rate is, 74%. The dips is where the actual information is because then you can go and eliminate the reasons for those dips happening. And then your overall show rate is a lot higher, right? Because there could be one number skewing the reason that it's higher or lower. So that's the other thing I would say is visually being able to see the impact of your changes over time and how it affects your data.
Yeah, it was crazy. You're making me not necessarily have PTSD, but just flashbacks. Working on the sales side, and I remember the director. There was a period of time where there was a bunch of changes happening. He's like, "Why are numbers down?" It's like we just changed like four different things. Did you expect like performance to stay the same or increase? Like, there's going to be a shift, shift here, and it's like, hey, we also been saying like we need to keep the teaching, and like this was a crucial part. And though it may not seem like something that was you could have measured, well, now you can see the result, the fact that we lost this person who was taking care of making sure mentally these people were okay, they were performing, they were sharpening their skill sets. So now we have data. We tried
Yep.
to tell you this beforehand, but also sometimes it does come to that point. But some people think it's like, okay, are we tracking just a track? Right? What information is crucial? What information is not? Because if it's not getting tracked, it's not getting measured, and if all
Yep,
this other
yep.
stuff. Do you feel that there is a point where it's like too much data that's getting looked at to where it's like that analysis by paralysis type effect? What information is important? What's not? How do you go about having those conversations, but then also being able to identify it's like, hey, we really don't need to pay attention to this. You need to pay attention to this instead.
That's a great question because that is what a lot of people like overdo, right? So they just over track. And what you want, what my methodology is, every single like metric on a dashboard or that you're tracking should have a use case for it. If it does not have a specific use case, then there's literally no point to do it, right? There's like you're just putting vanity metrics on there just to have them. And if that's the case, it's just like wasteless, right? Or you don't even need to waste the data you should spend on that. So what we usually say is, what are the goals? And then we find all the metrics that can drive those goals. So we're literally start from the end. Like, okay, is this your revenue target? We'll reverse engineer all the inputs across every single business unit, sales, marketing, customer success, that we would need to hit that. And then the data that's needed for that, that's something that we would, bring visibility on. If it's like somebody's asking for something like very, very specific, what we'll typically do is ask them, what's the reason? And then we can go ahead and bring it if it's needed. But it's still not even something that we would be like, okay, now we're going to track this forever. It's like, no, this is just one ad hoc chart that you wanted to see or something like that. Yeah. So mine is, to sum it up, really, it's like they need to have a use case and they should all derive from a goal. Like all of them should derive from a goal.
Yeah, I'm happy that you said that because I've had that challenge personally at times where it's like wanting to have oversight as just where everything is or and have like everything measured just to have it measured. But then it ends up just stalling the other performance
Yep.
in other areas. And it's like, it's not to say that this information isn't important. It's just not important for right now.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I feel like to a degree it becomes like this whole chicken and like who came first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah.
Because then people are like, see, but if we were tracking it, we would have known. It's like, got it, but we didn't need to track it at that time. Now
Yeah.
it's relevant. Now we can, have a closer eye on this information. What do you feel like are some of the misconceptions when it comes to running an intelligence?
Some people, what we have to do to really, really cold prospects or people who are like, I would say, they just have no ideas. We actually have to make them problem aware because they think that they're just fine winging it or that they have a good enough setup or whatever it is. So a lot of time what we have to do is like provide them that if you are not making every decision on your business, at least with a little bit of data as a part of the reasoning for that logic or you making that decision, you're literally just shooting shots in the dark. Even if, right, it's been working maybe for the last 6 months, you have a higher chance of guaranteed success if you have your answer or your decision backed by data. And if you were consistently hitting green, okay, we'll just revalidate that with numbers, right? Like there's no need to, because when it drops, then what are you going to do? When it stops working, then what are you going to do, right? So for prospects like that, it's really just making them problem aware that if you aren't using data to make your decisions, especially in this day and age, you're just guessing and your competition is. So you're actually just going to lose anyway. Other one that we really haven't talked a lot to our clients about is having clean data now will set you up for the future so much simply because the large language models that I think every company eventually will have, they have to be built on top of your company's data, right? So if you have all your SOPs stored with all of your actual data analytics on like the output side, everything else, when you need something, I think it'll get to the point where you can just, query up a chat bot or talk out loud to your own proprietary company thing. And it's going to be like an overview executive assistant. If your data is not clean or if you don't have any data, you're not going to be able to do that. So you're literally just setting yourself up correctly for success, having that in place now for the future. And that's like, we haven't even really talked to our clients about that because it's just not all the way there yet for like even smaller companies to have, but they will be set up greatly for success when that time does come.
Yeah, and I do think, just in general, whether it's with intelligence, but anyone who's providing a service in like some kind of consultancy space, because we know that not end goal, but like the future down, it's tough sometimes wanting to jump because like
Yep.
I gotta work them, I gotta adopt them into the phases, even though I know you should be doing this here right now because it'll help. We just got to work down the road and just kind of get there. But it's interesting because some people are very hesitant and secure, or I don't like to use the word scared. They're just
Yeah.
hesitant
Yeah.
in this space because it's like you're dealing with their information. Well, what if it gets out? Like, right? So, and I say that because one of my buddies, one of their biggest hurdles of adopting AI and like other tools that's out there is because they work in the government space. You got a lot of classified information. You got these things. So it's like, okay, well, we can't put that out onto the
Yeah.
open, right? So it's like, well, we have no choice but to create our own in-house.
Exactly.
When you're having these conversations with people, like how much of a have you seen to where it's like they're on high alert of their information getting out or adopting these tools because it's going to be,
Yep.
out there in the world?
Literally both. It's like flip side. It's like the people who are like, we don't want anybody, we want it all in house, right? Or we don't care. We already know our information's already out there. So it's literally it's both. Now when it comes to the government people, yeah, they like have to build it in house. But that's what the benefit of is being able to run your own like model off of the data that you already had, and it's not exposed to the internet. You just have to have whoever's overseeing it needs to be on their P's and Q's and make sure nothing like gets leaked or anything.
Fair enough, yeah. I think as people start to realize, like again, how to actually use the tools properly, where it should be placed, that fear factor like leaves because they're like, if this gets out, it's not crazy. And then the stuff that we might want to just have a closer hand on,
Yep.
we'll have a closer hand on.
Yep.
As you're building, you're growing, right? Because you guys, what's it been like a year, I think, or a little bit, right? As you're building and growing, there's a lot of bumps in the roads. There's a lot of, didn't know this. Now we got to change this. What's been some of those like bumps in the road so far as like a beginning entrepreneur that you've faced that was one, intriguing to find out, but two, also like, okay, this is tough because everyone goes through it, right? So, but I feel like there are the exciting parts where you find these road bumps and then you overcome them, and it gives you that kind of like an athlete, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh man, I couldn't get like over this hurdle, or I could like for me, I have a football background and funny enough, a cheerleading background. So when like I wouldn't be able to hit a stunt, I would get upset. And the moment I did it, I was like, let's go. And I feel like as an entrepreneur, you get that same thing when you get the roadblocks. It's like you're upset that it's there, but you're also it's like, okay, cool. It gives you something challenging to do. Then you overcome it. Then you're like, yes, let me go for the bigger stunt.
Yep.
What have been some of those challenges for you, kind of like in this very early stage?
Yeah, so I think the biggest one, and it directly correlates with my athletic career, was literally just the roller coaster being a part of the actual like journey. So like in track, the way that it works is right is that you train really, really, really hard in the fall for collegiate track at least. You train really, really hard in the fall. You kind of let up a little bit during the indoor season. And when I mean let up, it's like you're not as heavy, right? So then you go ahead and you run faster in the indoor season, and then you kind of like reload up a lot at the beginning of the outdoor season. And then towards the end of the outdoor season, you're like the leanest you can possibly be. You're not practicing as much because you just want to sprint really, 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 really fast. So with business, I realized that there is literally like building phases and expanding phases. And I at first was like confused by the two, but now it's like I'm at a point where it's like when I realize that okay, it's a building phase, I actually like get excited. I'm like, okay, it's time to like build because I know what's about to come the next time. It's time for us to, peak again, which is the word that we use in track. So that would be the biggest one is realizing that it's not just like linear or even exponential, like up. It really is the ebbs and flows, ups and down, building to be able to go to the next stair. You know what I mean? Every time that you make a new, peak, you have to kind of like stable your foundation there so that when you go up there, if you do fall back, you're only falling back to where you already had built. So you don't drop all the way down back the slope. So that's honestly kind of where we're at right now. My business is we're rebuilding. We expanded really, really good the last couple months. And now we're kind of like stabilizing it. We're hiring more, making sure people understand everything that they need to, because the next time that we expand, it's gonna be a lot more people involved than what it was before. So yeah.
No, I love the way you broke that down, and it's so true. And from the conversations that I've had with people, of the majority of like successful entrepreneurs that I've found, they have an athletic background and they correlated to that same
Yep.
concept.
Yep.
And I remember talking to someone and they were like a marathon runner. They were like, I promise you, no matter who you talk to, this will be the best comparison. It was like in marathon prep, obviously the long goal is you're going to be running these 26.2 miles.
Yeah.
The one thing you're not going to realize though is you've done that multiple times leading up to the actual race day
Yeah.
of 6.2 miles. He's like, you you've been accomplished running a marathon when it comes to mileage. That's already done. But when you get into those moments where it's like it is quote unquote race day, now you're like, okay, this is what I've always prepared for. But throughout that time in that practice, you have slow days or slow runs. You have long runs. You have tempo runs. And he's like, this is the same thing. Like you're doing a marathon prep, and like for some people, their like marathon race day is like when they exit the business because now
Yes.
they're put it right. They're putting everything together. This is the big package. This is the big hurrah, cool finale. But getting up to there, it's like you've already done everything to get
You
like.
literally already did it. Yeah.
So he's like, just remember that. And he's like, when people tell you like, hey, it's a marathon, not a not a
Literally,
sprint. It's the concept of the pacing, the long runs, the slow runs, the days you got to run when you're injured, the days you got to run when you're tired. Maybe there's some times where it's like, hey, we just can't do this run. Maybe we need to switch it. That's okay.
yep.
But
Part of
yeah, and I was just like, this
it's a
was
good
great.
analogy. Yeah, it is.
So let people know a little bit. I want to dive deeper into like the actual services that you guys provide so they get a better understanding specifically. Help us understand like those services because I think it is very unique and people need to get an understanding of that.
Yeah. So what we do initially, right, is we really take a deep dive under the hood. So we will literally get your data across sales, marketing, customer success, all of that. We're going to literally go and get it, even the historical data, the ones that we can. After that, we'll go ahead and build you out kind of like an infrastructure so that all the new data, right, is streaming to the same database that we have for you guys. After all that's done, typically what we like to do is we coach the clients on these are the reasons these numbers are on your dashboard. And immediately these are errors. Like these are inefficiencies that we see. If I were you, we would go ahead and fix these. So we kind of give them the choice that we can either help them with the implementation or they can just take it and go, right? So we have some people that literally, they just want us to set up the data. We have other clients who are like, okay, no, we want the actual consulting on top of it. So with them, the beauty of running a data company is since I have the data across multiple businesses, when they come to us with an issue, chances are I've already probably seen somebody else with the same issue. And I have the data to prove this process in your industry is doing pretty good. So it's no harm for us to just try it right here, right? So our consulting, we actually kind of see it as like almost like a Gartner group type of like deal where it's like they're getting access to a bunch of proven processes across a number of verticals that we can just literally plug and play into their business anytime that there's a error, right? So it's really beneficial. Every time we get a new client, I tell them that they make our business better. So now we understand more about, no, like genuinely it does. So yeah, it's really just that. It's building the data infrastructure and consulting directly to the inefficiencies in your business after that. And since that's the kind of partnership that we have, it's not really just like us just fluff talking or being easily replaceable as far as like, okay, we'll run your ads. We've had a really good partnership with our clients because it's like we grow with their business, right? There may come a time where like, all right, hey, we want to add YouTube as an acquisition channel. Okay, boom. So we already know this is the framework that you'd have from the jump on YouTube, right? Like this is, we already have the data to prove that. So they kind of get to like skip the line on a lot of things simply because they're working with us. So yeah.
Dude, I love that. I know for a lot of people who are in the consulting space, I've had this challenge as well. And I'm pretty sure you probably have too, is when you're consulting these people, you ever get them to where they're just like, you know what, Isaac, you ever you want to just come work like for
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
no. That we can consult, we can partner, but I'm not jumping ship to think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's funny because I find it amusing because I find it as a rewarding
Yeah.
notification where it's like, hey, you're doing something actually real
Yep.
impactful.
Yep.
And what you're doing, it provides that much value that somebody's willing to be like, hey, listen, actually come on to our team. Like, I don't want to just be, you do this. Now, I want you to do this whole department, right? But it is challenging sometimes for people who are new and getting started because it is attractive to, maybe not jump ship, but just get embodied with a
Yeah.
company versus just, hey, no, I want respectfully, I just want to keep this as like this partnership model that we have. And it can be tough. Have you had those? I'm assuming you probably
Yeah.
have.
Yes. Yes. The client who, it's funny, the client who made me realize this is my offer was the same one who was like, bro, just come work with me, like full time. It's good because my light bulb went off because of him, and his light bulb went off because he found me. And it was just like, nah, brother, you ignited a fire. When
Listen, I'll give you the hookup because you started.
yes, yep,
Nah.
Yep.
That's great, man. As we're wrapping up, I want to first make sure people understand where they can find you, where they can find more information about MBRLY as well. If they're like, "Hey, this makes sense. This is something I've been wanting, or I'm kind of curious about this." Where is the best place for people to find more?
Yeah, so if you guys are on Twitter, you can find me at Let's Go Davis. Davis is the last name, and then on Instagram it's Isaac N. Davis, ISAAC with two A's. That's how I spell my name. And then I'm also on LinkedIn as well. And then we have a lot of content on data coming on YouTube really soon, so you can just find it as Isaac Davis on there as well.
I like it. We're going to link everything as well too. As we're looking towards the future, right? It's the beginning of 2025, looking to end 2025. Where do you see for yourself and then also with MBRLY going? Or what's like kind of major goal for this
Yeah.
year, you guys?
So I have some really, it's weird because the goals are kind of like non-output related. It's kind of like structure related. So my goal by the end of the year, I genuinely think people will be able to run companies now with like just C-suite and like AI agents. Like I genuinely think that that's what it'll be. So my goal is to find a CMO by the end of the year. I want to find that, and then we have some really cool stuff that we're trying to build as far on top of the data. So a sneak peek is that we really think the future of data won't even be like dashboards anymore. It'll be like agentic data analysts that just have access to the data warehouse that all your company's data is stored on. It's providing you like trigger-based reports like, hey, this just dropped 10%. You should probably go check on it. And then it can, if it has access to actually change it, it'll just do the tweaking in real time. So that's what we think is coming. There's only one thing we've seen that has done that, but then it got acquired by SAP in 2023, and there's no information on it anymore. So I don't even know what they're doing now. But that's yeah, bro, it's crazy.
Wow. One, you heard it. So if you guys are, you fit the description or you're curious, he's looking for a CMO. And I love that because like I'm starting to produce now. I work a lot more in the shadows for people, which is like right. That's typically how it is. But now for how things are, especially on the AI side, you kind of have to be. I don't say you kind of have to. I feel like there's a sense of responsibility to be more on the forefront to educate and bring a little bit more awareness as it's developing, especially if you're using it. And it's only a benefit to like obviously the person who's also providing the integrations or the solution because it's like you don't understand it. Let me educate you, then I can
Exactly.
help. Right. So
Exactly. Yeah.
across the board, if you're anyone of some service base, it's like, hey, if you feel like you're in that position, educate people first. It makes it a lot easier, and then you can, obviously get hired. But with that being said, too, I feel like there is a degree where there are going to be a lot more companies. One creative, but two also that's lean
Yes.
because of the agents, which I love, and I would love to like jump into that too. Did you see the comp or I forgot the name of the business, but it's like it's going to be the first $1 billion company to not have like any employees. It's just all going
Oh
to be
my
run
gosh.
by them.
I saw somebody saying one about like the first one person like billionaire, but a zero
Yeah, that's
person. Okay. Yeah.
one
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, I don't think you could create. Well, let me not say that. I
Yeah, we
don't.
don't know. No, but I genuinely think that we'll probably see that. We could see that literally by the end of the decade. Like we genuinely could. Because it's like it's possible now. That person would have to have a brain on them for sure, but it's possible now.
That's so funny because one of my guys, Blake Basil, love him. Definitely will say to connect with him, and I can connect you guys. He runs a lot of different automations, but he actually has his own software called Ideify .io or .ai. But he has different different departments in his software to where like they can all talk to one another.
Yes.
I was like, wait a minute, wait a
Yep.
hold up. So you're telling me I don't even have to hire out
Yes.
people. I can curate my own departments and have them all talk to one another. So it's like, hey, if I'm already talking to the sales and I need them to talk to the marketing, which they talk to them, it'll just go ahead and do it. He was like, yeah. I was like, okay.
But it's getting scary.
Yeah, let me set up a demo. Let me do this. But it is good, but I think my question then becomes just like as these tools are getting developed, you're having these areas to where you don't need as many people. And there's a big conversation me and him had on the podcast is that separation between like the low, middle, high class. To where it's like that middle class really
It
just aren't gonna be there. And
it
what's
does.
look like? Is that good? Is that bad? What's your thoughts?
I think it sucks because it's like almost inevitable. Like it's like I don't even see a way that like that hill that we're sliding down like stops simply because of that. Now the only thing I do see as a benefit is blue collar work hasn't been affected by AI like really at all yet. I mean, like they're trying to build like the robots and stuff, but they just don't work as fast as humans. So I think it's just gonna be like the middle class jobs are just going to completely shift. I literally think that we'll have like people doing service based that require human labor. I think they're going to start making like, I mean, they already are, but I think they're going to start getting paid a lot simply because those are the only things that like AI is not really affecting right now. But then it just also like pushes all the other jobs, their pays down because it's like, if somebody's going to be paying for this person, their roles are a lot less than what it was before. Like genuinely, like I don't think by the end of the year with the way the software thing, unless a company just simply wants to keep paying people, which they won't have to, or you can have two software engineers run the entire thing and they're just troubleshooting at that point. Make sure that nothing goes
Yeah.
wrong. It's scary.
I remember listening to a podcast, and the guy, very successful entrepreneur, he's in more of the blue collar space. His name's Justin Waller, and he talked about the fact that over the next 5 years, it's like the demand for blue collar
Yeah.
work and the pay, like back to that traditional skill set, or was it
Yeah.
craft? I think
Craftsmanship. Yeah.
craftsmanship is going to skyrocket.
It
And I
is.
think it is because of that, to where that divide is going to force people either up or or down. And it's like fine, but then you have the conversation where it's like, okay, if you get forced down, you're now moving over to a labor work job. It's not necessarily bad, it's just different because the demand for physical people to do it is going to be there. So it's like it's going to be interesting to see how the world kind of like reacts to it. But with that being said, I do feel like after we do make that shift of no middle class, not too long after that, there will be a new like high class, which then recreates the middle
Yep.
class because
Push it back down.
yeah. So the cycle. So I'm interested to see what that looks like as well too. But that being said, Isaac, I want to say thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's true. I can have like a whole 2 hour conversation with you. So
We
I will
could.
do a part two, like specifically on that, and maybe I might bring my boy Blake in. It's like we just have a whole AI
Yeah.
conversation. But with that being said, our biggest thing, our company is called InfoProfit OS, and the reason for that is for different things, but I feel like one insight can always be the turning wheel to then help people like really take their business to the next level or their life to the next level. So with that being said, what's one piece of insight, information you would love to leave with people that's listening to this today?
In 2025 going forward, it's just leverage these tools and leverage your time because that's the only determining factor I think that will allow you to win is just try new things really fast. Once you find something that's work, leverage it to your advantage. And yeah, so I would just say focus on leverage and focus on moving fast, like really, 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 really fast. Because even if it's a rejection, it's just redirecting you to a different way. So
Awesome. I love it. Guys, that's Isaac Davis. Appreciate it. Till
cool,
next
brother.
time.